Well, now we are going to go to our next presentation. So, Angela, can you say hello and give us a self-introduction?
Sure. Yes, I can. Angela Kenyon here. I'm the director of bioinformatics at LabCorp. At our company, it is part of IT. And others, it might be part of the business, but I do work for the dark side. I mostly handle large volumes of all kinds of data, usually to develop new genetic tests like carrier screen or inherited cancer. And then I also work on the laboratory information systems that help track all the specimens for those tests. My background is in biology and applied math, so the other IT stuff just kind of came along the way. And then that was right in school in Massachusetts in Worcester, so kind of just been around Boston my whole life. For fun facts that I put on the slide, I bring up that I love to play video games. There's a lot of Mario Kart going on here at night after all the daily WebExes, and I escape to Disney any chance that I can. And then fun fact about me, I really like rock music a lot and drive all over New England to chase my favorite bands when they come to town. So the benefit of being the Northeast is there's like 5 states within 2 hours. So I take advantage of that often.
Well, that's
Uh,
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. So, just pull up your slides and take it away.
all right, let's do it. Hopefully sharing works nicely first try. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about building a personal brand. I think it goes nicely with everything that we've talked about today about feedback and how you're perceived and how you want to be perceived. And then really I tried to focus on ways that you can amplify both your influence and your impact as you're building that brand. So I think it's nice for all of us to start with a quote. I noticed that others did it too, so at least I wasn't the only one. I really struggled with what to pick, but I think this one suits my presentation the best. So baby steps count as long as you're going forward. You add them all up, and one day you'll look back and you'll be surprised at where you might get to. And I think that's, you'll see the recurring theme, but really just remembering that small steps are still steps, and that, sometimes you might get so stuck on where your end goal is that you feel stagnant or that you're never going to get there. But if you just put one foot in front of the other, then, usually you're pretty happy with your progress. I chose the beach image to the right because How Women Rise is one of my favorite books. It's so close to me that every time we go on a beach vacation every year, this is the book that I choose to read. I think I've bought it a few times now because the sand and salt just kind of ruin it. But it's a wonderful way to sit and have that break from work. But if you haven't read the book, I definitely support everything that's in it. And part of the themes of this book really do fit the presentation topic I chose, just about really trying to get your name out there and really how that can help your career, and watch out for some pitfalls that we typically fall into as women, and trying to tend more towards that wallflower end of the spectrum when sometimes you really do have to shout off the rooftops if you want to be seen and heard. So I think before I get into what I wanted to talk about, I thought it was important for you to understand what my baby steps have looked like so far. I always think about it when I interview somebody and they're always like, oh, can you talk about your company? And I'm like, oh, I can, but it's the only job I've ever had straight out of grad school. So I started at Genzyme Genetics. I was just a programmer. It was fun. I made lots of cool little tools for the scientists to use that crunch data. And then I went ahead and had my first baby step to becoming a senior programmer. After a couple of years, people definitely took note as to what the tools were that I was creating and the value they brought. Right around that time, LabCorp went ahead and bought Genzyme Genetics. So I stayed in research and development and eventually became a lead engineer, because with that acquisition came the opportunity for more little tools that scientists needed. So perfect little niche for me, but I was kind of a lone wolf. And I realized that although I had taken some great steps in my career, I really wanted to be with other people. So that's right around the time the bioinformatics group got formed. So I hopped over there. Now, instead of a team of one, I became a team of four. It was my first time officially managing other reports. So people talked about imposter syndrome. You're definitely going to go through that journey as you transition to the management track and still try to contribute. And then here we are to my current status as director, 15 underneath me now that we rock out daily. We're spread across 9 different states. So, we were hybrid even before the pandemic hit, just in terms of a lot of us are never in the same room together. And then, the timeline continues to the right. I don't know what my next baby step's going to be. Maybe one day I'll be VP, or that's where I hope I get, but there could be a lot of different baby steps that happen in between there. But at least to give you some background about my journey so far, as you take in my perspective. So when you think about influence and impact, I feel like it's really hard sometimes, right? You can read a book and it just says, go have more impact. And you're like, well, that's nice. I have no idea how to do that. So I thought that maybe I could put up some thought-provoking questions, and then you can walk through this exercise on your own and start to answer them. So one question that you should ask is, what meetings could increase your exposure to senior leaders? So, I'm in IT, so there's meetings all the time about new acquisitions or new software that we're evaluating. You'd have to extrapolate it to your field, but where are the senior leaders getting together and talking about stuff? And how can you try to get a seat at that table, whether it's bringing a new proposal forward or giving feedback about an existing project that's going on, finding the right sponsor that might be able to get you an invite to that table, but really just identifying what are the meetings that you're trying to attend where you think some of those thoughtful conversations are going on. And then ask yourself, what unique combination of skills would you bring to that table, right? Because this is part of your pitch, right? Nobody wants to invite somebody extra to dinner, right? So what are you bringing as an extra skill set that's not already there? Or maybe it's the combination of your skills that make you a unicorn, and you want to make sure that you can articulate that if you're going to then try to convince somebody else of it. So now that you know what meetings and what skills, you got to ask yourself, all right, how are you going to advertise your accomplishments, right? How are you going to let everybody know that you're out there as a choice that they can pick for their next project or stretch assignment or committee that they're forming? So think about what's the best way that you can advertise. And you got to be comfortable with it, right? You can read a lot of books, but if you're an introverted person, then waving a poster on the side of the road is probably not the way that you really want to go about it, right? So thinking about how you can advertise in a way that suits your personality, because if you're not comfortable doing it, you're not going to do it often. So you need to find a way that you can advertise that suits you. So now we know what meetings and what skills, and we're talking about ourselves. So now you got to ask, okay, how do I leverage my unique skill set that I identified 2 questions ago to contribute to a certain project or a problem that you're trying to solve, right? This is probably one of the harder questions. I think you thought it was hard as you went through my first 3, but really trying to figure out what you do with all these facts that you've uncovered about yourself and your company, and how can you really contribute in a different way. Sometimes people call these stretch assignments. Maybe it's some new idea that, or some proof of concept you're trying to bring to life, but definitely can spend some time on that one. And then you got to say, okay, what touch points could I set up with key thought leaders so that they know that I'm out there, that I'm interested, that I've done these other things before. So it's a forum for you to advertise. It's a way to recruit for new work. It's a way to just network with more leaders in the organization, whether they're male or female. And then the last point that you can think about is, how do you use those sessions to increase your impact, right? Now you have that regular touch point. They know that you're a unicorn. They've seen you do some stuff. So how do you leverage that to keep growing it into the next big thing that you need? So easier said than done, but I feel like just telling somebody to increase their influence or have a big impact isn't really helpful feedback at all. So hopefully some of these questions can help you build that pathway for yourself. All right, so let's pretend we're ready to build our brand, right? And honestly, if you sit and do this exercise, it's way harder than you think it is to try to write your brand down. So I definitely recommend doing it, and you can do it after you read the book if you want to. There's definitely some good points in there that will help you. But let's just think about a brand everybody likes, right? There's different kinds of chocolate. Everybody has different kinds, but there's certain kinds of chocolate most people like, or let's just face it, everybody just likes chocolate, right? So what are some things that you can pick where, regardless of the person that we're talking about in your company or in your life, that they're going to like you, right? So one is to be a kind human. And I know this seems really intuitive as you read my circles, but I promise that living these every day as a leader is not intuitive or easy, right? So everybody can have a bad day, an employee that has a daycare issue, or somebody that just doesn't feel good, or they didn't have a good night's sleep, or their mom's been really sick and they're stressed, or you've given them so many assignments and hard deadlines that you know you're stressing them out, or they didn't have a good vacation the last time that they went for some other personal reason that occurred. You can be empathetic. You've been that person. I've been that mom that's picking up my kid at daycare while I'm unmuting the WebEx and trying to wave to the daycare lady and then still pull away and unmute and then memorize my slides so nobody knew I was in the car, right? When in reality, maybe I just needed some more empathy in that situation, or maybe I should have advocated for myself better. Maybe I just wanted to be super mom, like, but either way, just be kind to those that are under you or around you. And I think it really does go a long way. It's not always easy to be automatically kind, especially if somebody's letting you down or causing you to miss a deadline that you had promised to others. But kindness goes a long way. And it's the same thing that you would want in return from those around you. The other part's definitely be a good listener, right? Especially in the days of remote work now, you want to be able to know about the mental health of your employees. You know, how are they doing? Does somebody need a break? Is someone not having fun anymore? Right? We talked about quiet quitting. Well, what if they're not quiet quitting, but what if they're just bored? Right? Like, what if you're not giving them stimulating work to do? Or what if they don't like doing something and you keep making them? You know, I said I have a team of 15. Well, if person A doesn't like doing it anymore, maybe person B loves doing that kind of activity. And I just need to swap who's working on it. But I only know that if I'm listening to everybody, if I'm asking them questions, because you can be a good listener, but if they don't feel like you're creating that environment, then nobody's actually going to talk to you to begin with. So really taking note of where you have gaps, where people have needs, and just listening as they give you that feedback, I think really goes a long way. And that's the kind of leader, at least I want to be known for when upper management is talking about me. The other one is to be transparent. And this definitely matters going down, but especially when you look up, right? If I'm reporting to senior leaders, even if it's bad news that you're giving them, you got to be transparent and honest about it. Hey, I messed up. This happened. Hey, we're going to miss this deadline because we had to do this extra work to reduce risk. You just have to own it, right? We're all humans. We all make mistakes. I work in a clinical space where mistakes really aren't allowed, right? That could be someone's patient's health. They could be choosing a different directive because of the result that we give them. So there is no room for error, but we're still all humans. So I think being transparent about when you do have an error, and then people aren't going to remember that you had the mistake. In fact, it was a few months ago, I had made a mistake. We were crunching some data. I had a whoopsies cut and paste error. Who knows how the error actually happened? I caught it when I was rechecking my work later, but I had already published some of these results to people internally and senior leaders. So when we got on a call, I just owned it. I was like, yep, I'm human. I did this. I'm super sorry. I caught it. And someone messaged me right after I did it to be like, oh my God, you are human. I can't believe it. And then someone else messaged me to be like, thank you for doing that, because the next time I have a mistake, I'm just going to do that too. So, not only are you going to be transparent for yourself, but it actually has impacts to others. I had senior leaders that noticed I owned it, and I had people below me that were really proud that I set that example, that it's okay to say that you messed up sometimes. In the end, people just want to know that you're transparent. And even though it's hard to be transparent, it's easier to maintain transparency than it is to maintain a lie. So I definitely support it across the board, but especially as you think about reporting to leaders above you, I really think that's a hard line to hold, but something that's really important. And the last one is to just be dependable, right? People want you to deliver, and don't let them down when they give you something to do. And if you say you're going to do it, you make sure you get it done, because that's what a leader does, even if that means rolling up your sleeves and you're crunching data right next to your peers. So again, these aren't things that are going to set you apart from somebody else per se. Lots of people should emanate these qualities. But I do think if you can emanate all four of these qualities together, that's a brand that people will take notice of. And that's a kind of leader that anybody would want in their organization or involved in their next project that they're working on. And the most important thing is you got to live by your brand. So whatever good qualities you're picking that you're going to try, just make sure every day you look at your little checklist and say, did I do this today? Or in the moment when you're asked to respond to somebody, just remember, how would I want to be responded to if the roles had been reversed? And then you can give your response from there. All right, so we kind of talked about how we're going to influence and impact and stretch our wings. We talked about some of the things that you may want to incorporate into your brand as you think about who you are as a leader and where you want to go, how you want other people to talk about you when you're not in the room. Then your next part is you got to start advertising. This is really hard for me. I'm an extrovert, so I like to socialize, but I don't like to talk about myself. I want to talk about your day or your kids, sure, but I definitely don't want it to come off as arrogant or that I'm in your face about what I need or what I want. And this could be because I'm a woman and I'm naturally, been told you sit on the side and you're quiet over there. But that's not who I am as a person. So I definitely want to try to monopolize on that one. So what are some new ways that we can brainstorm for you to be seen better? One is participate in opportunities that increase your exposure within or outside of your organization. Easier said than done because you got to find the opportunities, but they're there, right? Someone brought up joining ERGs or other communities that your company might offer. Those might have public speaking opportunities where you, just like today for us, you're coming and teaching somebody some wisdom or describing your journey. Or maybe it's going back to your college that you graduated from and doing a career fair or talking about to a group of interns about why they should intern. I mean, take your pick on how you want to participate. The example that I pulled up is I got approached years back by the company to do a life story to raise awareness about carrier screening. So I had my own personal experience with carrier screening, and they asked if I would share that. And one of the big things that I wanted when I thought about my brand or how I was perceived is I really wanted to show off that I was a mom, right? I'm a director and I'm a mom. Someone else talked about that too in work-life balance. I don't want to be known as just a director or just a mom, right? I'm both all the time. The school could call any moment and my kid could be sick and work could call me on a Saturday afternoon that a server's down and I'm still on deck, right? So the jobs really do bleed together. So the picture on the right is my daughter and I from that video. She got to guest star in the end. We did some cute science experiments together and we get to always have that, right? So I got to show her, hey, I'm a mom and I still do work at the same time and I can do both. So, I really like that vision for her. And it was a great way for me to meet people in my company that didn't know about me and for me to meet lots of other people. Truth be told, I didn't have a LinkedIn page before I did this video, just not into social media. So it even got me to make a LinkedIn page and I've made hundreds of friends and connections there since then. So that video's there, but you don't have to watch it. Another way is to just find an innovative way to share your accomplishments with a broader audience, right? I mentioned that I'm an extrovert, but I don't like to feel like I'm bragging about myself. So I started a quarterly newsletter and it covers projects and accomplishments that my team does and the broader bioinformatics and AI organization. And I mix in fun personal facts about who had a baby, look at this cute picture, who had a big work anniversary or who got married or who won an award, published a paper, whatever you wanted to put in. But we're building some connections, especially now that we're not all together anymore in the same office. But it's a way for me to advertise not just my accomplishments personally, but the accomplishments of my team or things that I'm aware of. So it's not me publicly standing on a soapbox doing it. I just send out the PDF once a month to hundreds of people, but people read it, they absorb it, and now they know a little bit more about me and my organization and our impact on the company. And then sometimes we meet a new friend and they reach out to us after to say, hey, you have that skill set? I have this problem. Do you think that we can get together? So may not work for you, but just food for thought. I've now done the newsletter for almost 4 years. I started it right as the pandemic hit. It used to be monthly and that just became too much. So we've gone to quarterly and I promised myself we won't go to biannually or anything like that. But it's a nice way to just have people hear and do lots of other ways that you could do it as well. I'm not saying it has to be a newsletter, but finding some innovative way that you can reach more people than you do on the daily right now, even if it's 1 or 2 at a time. My newsletter distribution started with 15 names, my team. And then it slowly went from there, or people would forward it and then people would get word of it. And now there's hundreds. In fact, I couldn't even tell you how many people read it now because it gets forwarded around after I send it. So food for thought there. You think about how you want to advertise yourself, what you want to say, and then you just got to find a way to get the word out there. All right, so now if we put it all together like we're a baker, what's your recipe for success? And this is just totally my thoughts. Some would argue I am successful or I'm not because there's still my next baby step that I'm trying to get to as well. So I think we're all learning from each other here today. But if you ask me to write down what your recipe of success could be, if you follow these points, it's definitely not going to hurt you. We can at least say that. I do think it's going to help further you though. So one, which we've kind of all talked about today, is forge relationship with leaders in your organization. They can be a mentor, they can be a sponsor, they can be a buddy, they can be someone that you drop F-bombs with off hours because you guys get along. However your pick of your networking or connection, just form relationships with other leaders. They can be managers, directors, VPs. I wouldn't limit yourself or even be concerned with title. Just meet other people and set up recurring monthlies or weeklies, whatever works for both of you. Be really willing to move the meetings around, make sure that they're very informal. But just making new relationships can really go a long way. It might take years to realize the benefits of a certain relationship, but one day it is going to surface. I'm a big fan of volunteering for stretch assignments outside of your comfort zone. I've done stretch assignments doing business relationship management. I did a stretch assignment doing specialty limbs work where we're tracking all the samples. None of those are math or biology, for the record, but just learning new things and meeting new people and writing down on paper that I officially have these new skills now. I definitely think are fun, and do pick something outside your comfort zone. Someone else talked about conquering imposter syndrome, right? It's really fun when you conquer it. It's not fun when you feel like an imposter, but when you get to the other side, you are so proud of yourself, and you should do yourself the service of having that moment. So pick something that's hard so that when you do it, you can really do your victory lap after, and then next time you won't be as scared either. So there's like so many benefits that can come out of it, but definitely get that victory lap in there for your career. I'm a big fan of help and elevate and mentor women around you. You could put people in this sentence instead of women, but since we're women in leadership today, I did write it. I think it goes a long way, right? I help you, you help me. That's not why I'm helping you. Sometimes it's easier to help somebody else than yourself, like even the declaring your brand, right? It might be easier for you to make someone else's brand, right? You've got somebody, some coworker that you're both trying to climb the ranks. If you're having a hard time writing your brand, try to write somebody else's, right? We talked today about how you're perceived by others. It might be easier for you to help somebody else with their brand, and then you can do it for yourself after. But just helping those around you, making sure you mention other women's names and their accomplishments when you're in rooms with senior leaders, or, dropping, hey, I did this work with so-and-so, and, she was really great and blah, blah, blah. I think that really goes a long way, right? Just help everybody advertise for themselves. And like I said, if you're having a hard time doing it for yourself, practice doing it for somebody else first. You get to feel good, you helped another person, and then maybe you can apply those same skills to your own brand. I'm a big fan of engaging in conversations. Ask questions. Don't be a wallflower. You get invited to that big meeting that you were trying to get invited to, you better find something to say, and it's not about the weather, right? Like, listen to the presentation, read the slides in advance, have those questions pre-prepared if you can, and then just wait for your moment to insert that question in there so people know that you're following the conversation, that you have something to add. I really think that that's important, right? Don't go unnoticed once you finally do get invited into the room. You definitely can't be afraid to try something new. It's always easy. People don't like change. If you let everybody sit in seats in a room, most of us will sit in the same chair every day, even though that I could sit wherever I wanted, right? So you really need to make sure that you're breaking that mold and trying something new and be willing to fail, right? The biggest failure is if you didn't even try. So definitely want that one there. And you got to be ready for chance encounters with leaders. If you're in the office still, you might just bump into them into the elevator or the hallway. And if you're remote like me, you never know when a leader's dropping in on a call or you end up chatting with somebody. You should have some topics or questions prepared or something you want to say. Maybe you know something about their career journey that you could bring up, or some project that you know that you have overlap with. But you never know when you're going to run into a leader sometimes, and that might be your one moment to make an impression on them. So having some script material pre-prepared for those run-ins will make you less nervous in the moment. And the last one, which I think is almost the most important, I almost put it first, is never lose your love for learning, right? If you get so stuck on progression that you forget why you do this job every day, it won't matter if you get your new title in the end if you don't want to sign in the morning. So you never want to lose that love of learning new things or connecting with new people, and just remember why you loved your job before you thought about elevating yourself in it. And make sure that you don't lose sight of that along the way. And I say this as someone who lost sight of it along the way over the course of her journey. So don't lose sight of why you love to sign in every morning, right? Something makes you get out of bed. You're not like a teenager trying to skip school anymore. So whatever makes you open your eyes, get up and be excited to log in is what you need to hold on to more than anything. So as my last slide, I've lost track of time. So I don't know if I'm like early or late, so I apologize. But I kind of wanted to write it out for everybody. What your example timeline could look like for developing your brand. If you're a super ambitious person, you may chastise me for using months as units. You can change them into weeks, girl. But I tried to go with a slow roll kind of plan. This is kind of the plan I follow. It allows you to do it twice in a year. So I think that's still good. But really, whatever it is, I wouldn't focus so much on the durations as the milestones. you're fitting this development into your day job. The last thing you want to do is to try to further yourself and you let go of your daily commitments. And now you're just labeled as somebody who doesn't do a good job anymore, right? It doesn't matter if you're trying to look like a good leader. In terms of some of the suggestions I have, month one, what are your strengths? Write them out, like physically write them out on paper so you can convince yourself you have those strengths. Go ask other people what your strengths are, right? We talked about how people see different qualities in yourself than what you see. So don't just let this be your perspective of your strengths. Write them out. And then think about your passions, right? And passions may be strengths. There could be some overlap there, but usually they're different. So first, you're going to write out what you're good at, and then you're going to write about what you want to do that's going to make you keep having fun. And then in the second month, you can work that into what are your core values for your brand. I gave you some of my values, right, that I highlighted to begin with. But what are yours that you're putting in your bucket when you think about yourself as a leader? Definitely recommend reading some books. I gave you one, no pressure. There's piles of them out there, but pick something and read it. You don't like it, pick up a different one. Don't feel you have to finish one once you start it if it's not written in a style that's for you, but definitely just pick a book and get through it. In the third month, I definitely recommend, and again, you can do this earlier, right? Find a buddy for support. This buddy could be somebody that's above you that you aspire to be. This buddy could be somebody that's right in the trenches with you, that's climbing ranks at the same time. You could get a different kind of buddy, have one in each category. And then also try to set up a meeting with a senior leader, somebody new that you don't meet with. It can be a one-off meeting at first. Hey, I'd like to learn more about you and how you contribute to the organization. Or, hey, I'd love to teach you a little bit more about me and see if we can work together, moving forward. However you want to get that initial foot in the door, but pick somebody that you don't normally overlap with, because this is you expanding your influence and impact as you teach new people that you even exist. If you're in a big organization and if you're in a small organization, you're teaching somebody about your overall set of skills that they can leverage. And now you're in month 4. It should be really easy to write your brand statement by now. You might have already had some drafts of it moving across these months, but now you're really formulating everything. So you can go ahead and jot that down and then meet some more leaders, because we don't want to just stop at one. Then you can find some places where you're going to make a difference, put an action plan together, go ahead and pick what your actual stretch assignment might be, and then just keep living your brand. And again, you can compress this timeline to whatever you want that doesn't make you endure too much stress. But even if you stuck to this extended timeline, I think it still looks really nice. And when you think about your annual review for your manager, you get to say, hey, I did blah, 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 and this as extra stretch things across this calendar year. And then, the to be determined ones are, you better keep meeting new leaders all the time. Leadership changes, there's turnover. You got to keep making sure your name's out there. Wow your audience with whatever you do for your stretch assignment. You don't want to get one and then only do mediocre at it, because that's not what you want people to remember about you. And then your forever tactics are just keep meeting new leaders, evolve your brand over time. My brand today isn't what it was 3 years ago when I wrote it, because I'm not the same person and I don't do the same work. Keep asking questions of other leaders so you can learn what to mimic or not mimic, right? And then just make sure you're delivering value, because I think that one goes a long way. If you're known as somebody who brings value to the table, it's a no-brainer to invite you next time. So I think overall, that's kind of my timeline for how you can amplify your influence and impact. And then with that, my final advice is some of the same. Keep having fun, right? Those people in those picture, they're having a blast. You should too. And just believe in yourself and conquer that imposter syndrome. And the last thing is, don't let yourself feel stuck, right? Baby steps are progress. So don't ever think that you're going stagnant. You just might be having a slower period of progression. So with that, I thank you for your time.
I'm sorry. Angela, well, thank you so much for your presentation. And yes, okay, so everyone, Angela is going to stay with us for our next panel discussion.